Those first few weeks after returning to my foster mother's house were honestly a blur. There were 4 kids at this point: me, my biological sister, a foster sister, and a foster brother. My foster mom also had 2 biological grandkids, her granddaughter being in another state at that point, and her grandson would come and stay, sometimes for a day, sometimes for a few weeks. It really depended. Within the first few weeks of being there, she told us that she was going out of town. She told us that we were going to go stay with family in Ohio, and she was taking my foster brother to go stay with his siblings at their foster mom's house. She told us that we were going shopping for clothes because she didn't want us to embarrass her while we were there. She bought me one of the most adorable pajama sets I ever had at that point in my life, and it was a tank top and shorts. It was all white with strawberries all over it. It is ingrained into my memory. The family in Ohio never treated us as anything other than family. It was like we had been there our entire lives. At that point, my Uncle Don owned a convenience store, and I remember hanging out with my cousins in the store all night long eating candy. It was one of the very first times that I genuinely didn't feel like an outsider. Within the first few weeks of coming back from Ohio, we had to get registered for school. We were registered at a school called Nichols Elementary School, and one of the fun facts about that school is that not only is it still open, but somebody that I went to high school with is currently a teacher at that school. I had this amazing teacher named Mrs. Brown. She wasn't very nice, but she was definitely my favorite. She gave me this really pure version of tough love. One of the things that I absolutely loved about Mrs. Brown is that sometimes her husband, Mr. Brown, would come in. And I think one of my favorite memories of him was the very first time he walked into the classroom and he saw me and he goes, "There's a white girl in here?" We all kind of laughed because he said the quiet part out loud. And even though he knew my name was Rhiannon, he would call me any name but Rhiannon. He told me my name had too many N's in it. He would call me names like Sarah or Stephanie or Stacy or Bethany, and it was honestly one of the ways that he kept me included in the classroom. So as the school year progressed and my grades were increasingly bad, nobody ever looked into why my grades were bad. And at the time, nobody had informed my foster mother that I had dyslexia and a learning disability. And to me, it was honestly one of the biggest hindrances in my adult life is the fact that not one person in my life understood how bad I was struggling educationally. See, I was street smart, and I had a lot of common sense, but school did not come naturally to me. I think one of my biggest takeaways from all of it was the fact that nobody was really prepared for me or my sister mentally. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just don't think my foster mom informed the school the way she should have informed them. She didn't tell them that we were foster kids. She didn't tell them that we had struggled with abuse or alcoholism. There was no insight given to the school prior to us showing up on the first day. And I genuinely believe that had she have given them better insight, the resources that I would have received would have been more abundant than they were. Struggling with neurodivergency, being separated from my siblings, being separated from my mother, being separated from the life that I knew prior to being in foster care, all played a huge impact on my educational career. A lot of times I look back and I think about how if one person had have noticed, if one person had have cared, maybe my educational career would have been different. See, my foster mom thought that I was just lazy. She thought that I was not doing the work because I didn't want to do the work. I was told that I just needed to try harder. And to me, that is one of the biggest downfalls of this part of the story. I wasn't lazy. I didn't need to try harder. I needed help. Help that I had been receiving prior to being in her home. Help that should have been continuously received after I was placed into her home. The social workers, the foster care agency, all failed me in that way. Not one person contacted the school to check and see if I was receiving resources, if I had something in place as far as a 504 plan or an IEP. After my behavior in school became worse because I was struggling is when she decided to move her biological granddaughter back into her home.